Hello, good afternoon to all of us. I hope you're all doing well. If you are online, just give me some emojis online so that I see that you're online. Yes, hello, Victoria. Yes, I'm waiting. Yeah, hello, Clara. Yes. Hi, Adoma. Now, you are welcome to our performance management um, workshop. Now, the topic is performance management in a multi-generational workplace. And I know already we started receiving questions even before the start of this program. That means that today is going to be very, very interesting. In the next 1 hour, we will get to understand what performance management is all about, especially in this current generation, and how it is working currently, uh, looking at the multi-generational dynamics, having the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, the baby boomers, and the millennials all coexisting in one space. And so this session will be an interesting one. And so I want you to share your expectations with us. At the end of the day, what are your expectations for this webinar? Whilst we share that, I also want us to know that this webinar is also approved for 1 credit hour for those of us who have certification and have to recertify. And so it's also approved for that. You can also use it and apply for your CPD courses. And those of us who have done some CPD courses, you can use it and request for credit for it. I'm not seeing a comment in terms of our expectations. I'm waiting for our expectations. Okay, I'm seeing hi, Iris, Cynthia, hi, Cynthia, Mary. Hello, Mary. Wisdom, good evening. I hope you're doing well. Portia, I can also see you. Okay, now, whilst I'm waiting for our expectations, and I'll make sure I read our expectations, I would just like to run us through our agenda for today. So we'll be going through some fundamental conversations with our panel. Then after that, we'll take your questions. Now, you can post your questions now, so that whilst the conversation is ongoing, we'll be able to take your questions and get the facilitators to answer your questions. I know this is a major problem for us as practitioners, for us as employees, and as leaders to our organizations. I know this is a major problem we face managing the various generations. And there was a webinar I attended, and the speaker says for him, he finds it difficult dealing with the Gen Zs. And so this conversation will look at how we can manage all the performance. Those who are hyper, those who are cool, those who do before complain, and all of that. Now, in doing this, in having this conversation, we are privileged to have two experienced facilitators, practitioners, people who have seen it all, who are still seeing it in the organizations. I first would like to introduce, she likes to be called Miss D, but she is Miss Doreen Baffo. She is the head of people and culture at Affinity Africa, finance and lead coach, and also a lead coach. She's also the founder of Branch Out Africa, a leadership development firm for SMEs across Africa. With over 20 years of experience in sales, service, and people development within the financial and academia, spanning from roles at Bayport, Stanbic Bank, Barclays Bank, and Data Bank Financial Services. Her deep expertise in human potential drives her with C-suite and middle-level executives across Ghana, Kenya, Zambia, and beyond. In fact, I like the beyond part of the profile. Doreen specializes in leadership transition, legacy minded leadership, and strategic team performance. She holds an MBA in marketing from the University of Ghana Business School. She is also a certified OKR practitioner, also a John Maxwell Leadership Certified Team Member, and a Senior Certified Professional with CHRM. She employs psychometric tools including Lumina Spark, the Maxwell method of DISC, and Leadership Coaching Index. Ladies and gentlemen, in summary, our first facilitator is a coach and has a very good appreciation of the generational gaps and generational issues, and also a human resource person who understands performance. Help me welcome Miss D, as she wants us to call her.
Thank you, One. Good afternoon to everyone on the call. It's great to be with you here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. Now,
My
I
pleasure.
would also like to introduce our second facilitator, who is in the person of Marcus Otin. He is a seasoned HR professional with expertise in performance management, talent management, HR strategy, learning and development, compensation analysis, and HR business partnership. He is passionate about helping professionals grow their careers and aligning HR strategies with business goals. He received a Management Consulting Award in 2023 from AI Global Media Limited and was ranked among the top 5 HR managers of the year at the 2025 HR Focus Africa Awards. Marcus holds a BA in economics from the University of Ghana and an executive MBA in human resource management from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. He currently serves as Human Resource and Organizational Effectiveness Manager at Accra Luxury, Ghana's premier and leading apartment hotel brand. You're welcome, Marcus.
Thank you very much for this flattery introduction. I hope this. I mean, my objective for this meeting is to learn. I believe learning never ends, and I hope that I leave this meeting with more knowledge than I came with.
All right. Now, before we start our conversation, I would like to do an introduction, and then I'll do my introduction myself. All right. So this program is being hosted by the HR Certification Center, led by the ACHRI, that's the Association of Certified HR Professionals, which is a body under the HR Certification Center, and its mandate is to be able to bring professionals together to champion the goals of the objectives of the HR practice. And so, at the end of the day, at the end of the session, we'll give you an opportunity to register as a member of the association. So if you want to be a member, we'll show you how to become a member. But the association is under the HR Certification Center, which is the organization that trains certified HR professionals or train HR professionals to become certified professionals. And what we do is basically that you are able to practice here in Ghana and also internationally with our certifications. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. You're welcome. You're welcome, my panel.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So the major problem in the organization today is the generational gaps. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have about 2 or 3 and even more um, generations in our workplace as we speak now. What I can think of on top of my head is the Gen Z. There's a new breed called the Gen Alpha. There are the baby boomers, and there are the millennials. And I know our facilitators will talk more about the generations. And we are finding most of them in the workplace. Most of these generations have different attitudes or different approach to work and have different perspective when it comes to performance. And so the first question I would like to throw to Ms. D is with respect to the concept of performance management. I want to know what you think performance management is and how relevant has it been in our generation?
All right, thank you, Papa. Now, I just listening to you, I don't want to frame this as a problem in the workplace. It just is our current reality. Having different generations is going to be a reality. It was my reality when I joined corporate Ghana in 2001. It will continue to evolve as everybody's reality as people join the workplace over and over again. Because if you think about it, currently, I think it was the Deloitte study that says that about 60% of the global workforce are millennials and Gen Zs. It just means that the baby boomers, most of the baby boomers are leaving the work scene. And if you're in formal or corporate Ghana, a lot of them would have retired in 2024. And so it just means then that that is our current reality. I don't think it's a problem. It just is what is, and how do we work with it? But when it comes to performance management, I guess my favorite definition, and I can't credit the source, but my favorite definition of performance management is an ongoing conversation or communication between the leader and their direct report to align business expectations. Um, so your goals or what the individual has to do and business expectations throughout the year. So it's my leader and myself having conversations on where the business wants to go and how I contribute to it. And it happens throughout the year. I don't think it has a start time and an end time. It's an ongoing communication process between the leader and their direct reports. And how does it happen in our current dispensation? In different ways, different organizations set different standards. A lot of the times when people hear performance management, what comes to their mind is just the appraisal bit, which is just one step in the whole process. But it truly starts with setting expectations, planning it out, monitoring it, developing your team as you go through, then the rating, and then aligning the rating to rewards. So it's if you think about it as communication between the leader and their direct report, that happens even in the informal sector. Consistently, you're having conversations on where the business wants to go, what your expectations are as a leader, how you expect the direct report to contribute, and that continues. So that would be my initial take on performance management in a multi-generational space. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, yes. So I don't know if Marcus, you want to have a bite on the conversation on performance management.
Oh yes, so I think Miss D has done a lot or has spoken well about this, but I just want to add this just to reiterate what he said. She said it's not a problem at all. I mean, you should think about it as though having a cocktail of talents to work with. Definitely, you're going to have challenges with um, having a large numbers or large types of people. And so, even though it comes with its positives, it also comes with its negatives, which will be the differences. Now, the goal here is to identify the right balance to be able to make the best out of all the generations that you work with. And if you're able to do that, you strike a good balance, and then I mean, you're able to help your organization achieve its objective, which is its targets, and hence performance management is in play. So that's all I want to add to Doreen's submission.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the question I have is the complexity now when it comes to our performance management system. And many are attributing it to the multi-generational system we have now. What's your take on that, Marcus?
I think they are not too far from the right answer. Um, one of the, I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't know whether it's just me or maybe other people would also attest to this. That I went to a seminar and the chairman for the seminar said that it seemed like the Gen Z has been the most publicized generations of all the generations. And it's mostly because their attributes or their characteristics tends to be not a bit different from the range. So if you are looking at the baby boomers, you are looking at Gen X, Gen Y, yes, there are some overlapping traits that are very common amongst these generations. But if you have a Gen Z, which it's a bit skewed to the right, then and so a lot of people think that they are the problems, but they come with their baggage. But to think about it, they come with a deficiency in the scope of the generation that we have, and finding a balance to have them on board and being able to come out with the best from the group is the secret to all this why we have about, oh, multi-generational is supposed to be a problem, but no, it's I see it more as an opportunity to be able to come up with something new that's going to make work-life balance better. So that would be my updates on that.
No, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marcus. And so we are looking at a balance
Yeah.
between the various generations. Now, probably the question goes to Misty. Can you help us appreciate some of the key characteristics that these generations bring on board or bring to the workplace for which organizations decide to create a performance management system that suits them or that strikes the balance as Marcus spoke about? Oh, okay. Marcus, can you take that
Yes.
question? Wow.
I'll take this. So we'll start with the baby boomers. So baby boomers are around the if I'm right, I'm around the World War II era, and this is times where the world was in chaos. People were fighting. Everybody was looking for survival. And so you realize that all these attributes ends up shaping how they behave. So in a time where you don't know exactly what's going to happen the next day because there is war, people are looking for some sort of stability. People are looking for um, some somewhat security, and so it formed the way they viewed life and the way they approached life. And so you realize that for all the characteristics of baby boomers, it's all mitigated towards survival, because at that period there was war. The world was at war. If you come to the Gen X, this was a post World War duration. What it means is that people were now adapting to life after war, setting up industries, and making sure that they were able to survive after war. And you find out that the Gen X have some traits that is more about adaptability, being independent, being able to manage things on your own, because yes, they've come out of war and they want to be self-reliant. They want to be able to move things on their own. And so you turn out that this generation or this group of people tend to have this terms of attribute. And now you move on to Gen Y, which is the millennials. These are people, a lot of people see them as they are self-centered. I mean, now people are moving from the external family into the nuclear family. I mean, this was the era where it was more publicized. They are also looking at people who want to progress in their career, because now they've seen their parents or their grandfather, their grandparents stabilize. They've adapted, but now they want to also grow. And so you have Gen or millennials, Gen Y or millennials, mostly characterized by wanting to develop, wanting to grow, wanting to grow higher in terms of the ladder. And of course, we come to the Gen Z, the
Our
almighty Gen
friend.
Z, our friends. Um, they came up in an era where digitalization was massive and everything was fast paced. Everything was being done like in a snap. Indomie, bah, 3 minutes is ready. Everyone can eat. If you want juice, you don't have to go and grind. No, there's a machine that can juice it. And so
Yeah.
it also impacted how they also saw things and how they so I mean when you see a Gen Z, you ask a Gen Z to do something, he or she is always looking out for an easier way to achieve it. I mean, termed as soft life. But
Mm.
it is not really their fault. It's because of the era they found themselves in. And all these things have a way of shaping how they see life and how they approach work. In fact, life is work, work is life. And so it all feeds into it and then it helps them to accommodate. And so all these, I would say this is a short story of how the various generations that we have currently um, um, came into being and how their characteristics manage them. So, I
All
mean, that
right.
would be what I would say.
Okay. So, to those of us who are just joining us, we are having a conversation on performance management and how it fits into the multi generational era. And this webinar is brought to you by the ACHR, that's the Association of Certified Human Resource Professionals. Now, Misty, based on what Marcus said, it seemed to be that the environment determines the expectation and how each generation moves or determines the expectations they have. That's the vibe I'm getting. I don't know what you think.
No, you're right. Context shapes behavior, context shapes expectations. So if I grow up in a certain context, then it shapes my behavior, it shapes my expectations as well. So my mom is a baby boomer raised by a traditionalist. Obviously, she has elements of the traditionalist and then her context as well. And then she had me, a Gen Xer. So you'd find in me the context of the traditionalist passed down from my grandmother. You find in me the context of the boomer, but then you find in me also my reality growing up. And then, of course, the generation after me, also the millennials or the Gen Y, as they're called, their context was different. Um, a lot had happened, and so context and expectations had changed. And so it shaped their behavior, it shaped their context. Then you come to the generation of my children, the Gen Zs. Of course, the context had changed. But in all of these, irrespective of how they are categorized, and I call it categorization, it just is what it is. It's just, it helps, it's a broad scope to help people plan. but inside it, as a people leader, the nuances that you have to look out for. And I use myself as the example because I say, if you put me in the box of, oh, this person is a Gen Xer, or as my son says, sorry, mom, I didn't speak Gen X. If you if you put me in that box, it's not a total picture. It's if you're working with me, you'd want to fully see me so we can communicate and work together. Because inside me is a context of the boomer, but there's also the context of the traditionalist. So I would want us to, as we go through the conversation, to realize as people leaders, or even if we're individual contributors on the call, that these are strictly generalizations and categorizations. You may find yourself not fitting into any of them, and it's okay. And I find that a lot of the times, once we get onto these calls, because a lot of these calls are happening lately, where we're having conversations and narrowing down or zooming in directly on Gen Zs and making it look like um, the whole workspace has to change because a new generation has suddenly arrived. So I want us to, as we go through this, just realize that those are just categorizations and that behavior has changed because of context. And so, how do we work together as individuals in that space, given that my context and your context might be very different? One is not a problem at all. We're just different because of our context. And you might find, as a people leader, you might find a Gen Z in your space who has been shaped so deeply by a boomer and shows up as that. So are you present enough to see them and work with them so that we do not fall into this whole categorization conversation and say, as for them, dear, because I'm a woman, and if I go into a workspace that say as for women, immediately I get defensive.
Yeah.
Or if I get into a workspace that says colored people, immediately all my feelings are out and I get defensive. So it's important that we realize that these are just broad strokes of categorization and fully see people that we work with.
All right. Thank you very much, Misty and Marcus. I think this question I'll ask you, Misty. How can organizations align generational differences with organizational goals or with performance goals, which is normally part of the goal of the organization?
May I reframe that to say, how can we align diversity
Hmm.
with organizational goals? And I say diversity because diversity comes in its different forms. The fact that there are women who have finished bearing children, the fact that there are women who are of childbearing age, the fact that there are women who biologically experience severe menstrual cramps at certain times in the month who must show up, the fact that there are men who are having babies with women who are full corporate women and both of us leave home. So the full diversity and then the age differences. So how does an organization ensure that the performance management conversation is happening, that we achieve our goals in spite of the fact that there's so much diversity in the workspace? I would say that standards, the organization starts with standards. Standards remain the same, approaches must adapt. You must keep changing. Lately, I've found myself asking myself, who designed work in the manner that we have it now that gets people rushing out of home at 4:30 a.m. With children? How did we design work like that? So how does an organization align work and ensure that performance it's maintained or that we achieve our objectives in spite of the diversity? I'll say the organization should be clear on what it is that its reason for being. That's the mission. It's clear on what it wants, its aspirations or ambition for a period, and it's clear. And then that the leaders who lead the the forefront on the achievement of these ambitions for the organization, have the skill set to communicate across diversity. Because if we're journeying to a common space, say you say all of us are heading to Abilempi, for instance, but all I speak is Hausa, and all you speak is Chi, and all another person speaks, for instance, is Ga. How do I, as a leader, knowing where the organization wants to be by 31st December, communicate in a manner that whether you speak Ga, whether you speak Hausa, or whether you speak Chi, that you understand, that you hear me, and that I'm able to share exactly what I'm looking for. And that when things are not going the way that they should, I'm able to have a conversation with you to bring us back on track so that we can journey towards what we are going for. So the organization has a role to play. The leaders at the forefront need particular skills, and then the individuals who are delivering on these objectives, who are as diverse as they come, must also appreciate the fact that sometimes the leader's language, it's very fluent in English and shaky when it comes to Ga. But when it's not, if they miss the words when they're trying to communicate in Ga, to be able to raise their hand and say, by the way, leader, that's not how we say it in my language. Here's what I hear you say. So that we are working together. So there's work on the organization, work on the leaders, and work on the individual contributors. But it starts with setting the standards so that we know where we're journeying towards.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. On the score of communication, Marcus, in your experience as HR consultant for some time, now we all know that communication is pivotal or is important in the workspace. If we don't communicate, there will always be chaos. Now, looking at the various generations with different languages and understanding, um, how is an organization able to come up with a performance system that incorporates all these languages as one, or find a middle ground for communication to happen?
I mean, the first thing that an organization would want to challenge or tackle this issue would do is first understand the various communication styles for the various generations. I mean, it's the easier option is to assume that once someone does not comply with your approach to communication, it will mean that that person is being disrespectful or that person is being nonchalant. But it could just be a way of expressing their emotions or their way of communicating. And so, if the goal is to be able to tackle this issue of communication in performance management, the first step is always to be able to understand how the various generations communicate. Um, and also, once communication, I mean, communication is a very vital part of performance management, because after performance or the targets or KPIs are set, it has to be communicated. It has to be explained to the team, and for them to also know exactly their inputs and what is expected of them in order to achieve their KPIs. And so understanding their way of communication. And so you don't have to just assume that once someone uses a particular slang, it means that the person is being disrespectful. But rather, I think one of the ways to tackle this is to have a mentoring and reverse mentoring. And it gives a very good base for us to be able to understand each other. Once we do that, especially with I mean, we are all familiar with mentoring, but with the reverse mentoring, it helps even the higher ups to be able to understand exactly what the gens or the Gen Zs are communicating. And it's not always to rubbish this and think that is a form of disrespect or is a way of not caring. And so I think the basic underlining solution is to understand every generation in terms of how they communicate.
Okay. Thank you very much. Whilst we're waiting for your questions, um, Miss B, I'll ask this question as a coach, and I want to tap in your coaching experience. Um, there's this notion that, especially the Gen Zs, um, have taken an entrenched position in terms of how they communicate and how they want to work, and they're expecting everybody to come to their environment. Now, the first question is this notion true? True. And if it is true, how can we appeal to the Gen Zs through coaching to be able to also appreciate that in the workspace, they are not the only one in the workspace. And they need to appreciate other generations in the workspace and find a middle ground to coexist. If it is not true, what say you?
So I don't think I've had the experience where um, Gen Zs are changing how work is done or how work is designed. I think that they show up and have particular, and it's not all of them. Again, and I just look across those that I have worked with. I like to look at, I like to fully see the individual when I work with the one. So you'd find a Gen Zer who very much behaves in the broad categorization of who a Gen Xer is, depending on who raised them, you know. I do find, however, and sometimes even I feel, I was saying to my CEO a few days ago, sometimes I even get jealous at the ability to ask certain things that I saw years ago and didn't think I could ask for, you know. So, like my son once said to his employer, how come I'm being discriminated against just because I don't have a spouse and children yet? If health insurance, it's for if I'm entitled to three other people because I'm married, as in my spouse and maybe two children or three children. So because I'm married, I get to cater for four other people. How come I can't have my sister as my beneficiary on health insurance? Very valid question. If I live with only my mom and the married people get to have four beneficiaries on health insurance, and you say I can have my mom, and I ask why can't I have her? That's not being disrespectful. That's understanding, trying to understand why the workplace is designed such that it benefits a certain segment of the population. So if you're married, your advantages are more, the organization spends more on you. And just because I'm not married, the organization chooses not to spend on me. That's a valid conversation to have. And then if you say to the person, oh, you pay twice the premium for somebody after the age of 60. And the one said, I live with only my mom or only my father. So that's two plus me, that's three. What stops us from giving that person? And what stops us as employers from having that conversation? It's it's a new generation who are asking questions that we may have thought about, but had a lot of us were told that, or you were encultured to believe that you couldn't ask. You take what is, you know. But the new generation is just asking questions. And what's wrong with asking questions? I raised my children to ask, to probe, you know. In house, they say, he who asks doesn't get lost. So if I ask, just because I see something as unfair, and I ask, and then you feel you didn't ask when it was when you started working, and so how dare I? Then I guess the development area, it's on you, who is not sure why anybody should question what you didn't question, you know, and not the one who is questioning the status quo. So I don't think that there's a whole new generation that's turning the workplace upside down. I think there's just a whole new generation who've been raised by the boomers and the Gen Xers to probe. to ask because we are competing in a global environment. And now when they ask, we're saying, why are you asking when I didn't ask? When I got the job, I wore white to go give thanks. Why should they wear white to go give thanks? Because they got a job. And they're asking, why do I have to drive at the same time everybody's driving to work? And there's a lot of traffic. Can I start my work at home? And then when traffic pipes down, I drive in? That's a valid question. And then if you're not used to that kind of question, you go, how can you even ask that? Work starts at 8. I say so. Maybe the growth is on you. But if it's not on you and it is our customers start at 8, and
Yeah.
so the role that you play, because we have made a promise to customers that by 8 o'clock our doors will be open, then there's that we're communicating. So I would say knowledge that we're different is the first one, just like my colleague Marcus said. But mindfulness to see the people as individuals when you lead them, that you see them. And then the ability for you as a leader to begin uh, to alter your behavior and grow with
Yeah.
the new generation. That's how I would put it.
So, Ms. D, I want you to stay on this topic. You, based on your answer, it is suggesting that we, who are not the Gen Zs, are trying to force the Gen Zs to fit into our world. And they want to understand why they should fit into that world. I don't know if that's what I'm getting from your answer.
To the worm in the horseradish, the whole world is horseradish. When a worm is inside mango, the whole world to that worm will be yellow.
Mm.
How I see the world is based on it's my knowledge, my context helps me
Yeah.
shape. And for me, that's my truth. So if anybody doesn't see it differently, the only thing that can bridge that gap on how they see it and how I see it is communication. So
Okay.
all I'm saying is that I want us to deviate from seeing a generation as a challenge. It's not the case. Because I'm hearing that song everywhere I go and the Gen Zs and the Gen Zs. And I find it difficult because I will have I will have immediate reaction if I walked into a workforce that says in this space women and women and women, because it's just diversity is all I'm saying. So how do you work with someone who is different from you? It's the conversation we're having now.
Okay.
It's first acknowledging the fact that we are different.
Yeah, different.
And that the fact that we are different doesn't make one wrong and one right. That two rights can coexist and it's okay. That's the first thing, is the knowledge of our differences. You know, when you go into a space, say you're taking, if somebody says, I don't see color, if you're in a white environment, an environment of Caucasians, and the person says, I don't see color, I treat everybody the same, you get offended. You know why? If the person doesn't see you, how can they appreciate the fact that you come with a whole context? Like there's a whole individual. You see what I mean? So if the person says to me, oh, in this workplace, we have to behave like a man to win. I'm a woman. And it's okay to be a woman. So all I'm positioning is that it's time to look at the conversation of generational differences as one segment of diversity and address it as such. To say, I'm different, you're different, it means there's communication that we need for understanding, and the growth is on both of us. Rather than they are coming, oh, what do we do? How do we force? How do we bring them along? We're different and it's okay. How do we work together in spite of the fact that we are different? That's how I want to position this. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, yes, yes. I'll have a follow up for Marcus, but let's get some questions from our people online. There was one question from Monica, Monica Sante. Yes, Monica is asking, what practical framework can managers use to give performance feedback that feels fair and motivating across Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, and boomers, since each group expects feedback differently. So I think, Marcus, you take a bite, and then Miss D also take a bite on this question.
Okay. So I think it fits into what I mean we've been echoing right from the beginning, that there is, I mean, uh, there is this notion that there is supposed to be a singular perfect way,
Mm,
and hence everyone is looking for that singular perfect way. I mean, it differs from organizations to organizations.
yeah.
As Ms. D said, there could be two rights, and we have to find a way to make those rights work. And so, one of the things that um, I would, I would recommend, or as a framework, is to have a look at the KPIs. Is it something that drives result, or is it something that drives? Is it just a duty or task-based KPI? I mean, in the end, the business is looking to become profitable above all, and hence results brings profits. And so, one of the I mean framework that you can look at is ensuring that your KPIs are results driven. That's the first one. The second one could be even with the results. The performance management always leads to rewards. I mean, you cannot have the same kind of rewards for everyone. And so, depending on the makeup of your team, you're able to come up with um, a proper or a reward system that would drive every department or every generation. And so, if you identify your reward system is fully for recognition, long-term service, I mean, this is going to be very favorable to a gen, sorry, a baby boomer, or probably maybe a Gen X. But for Gen Z, I mean, some flexible time or work-life balance, an opportunity to be able to enjoy small and also work small. I mean, combining this would be more motivating to them. And so, when you are looking at a framework for your rewards system linked to your performance management, you are looking for something that strikes a balance. So you are looking for one that impacts behavior, impacts recognition, and also impact even feedback. I mean, late boomers want feedback. I mean, structurally, maybe at the end of the year, you would sit them down, have a cup of tea, tell them. I mean, there's been so much of experiences that I can't even share all. You go to a company to consult, and manager is telling the subordinate, you wait, when it gets to evaluations, you see what I will do to
Evaluation
you.
to see.
Exactly. But I mean, most of the periods, when it gets to that period, people might even have forgotten exactly whatever feedback we're going to give. And so
Mm,
you want to be giving real time feedback. And so at my place, Africa Luxury, we have our KPIs. We have a daily KPI conversation, and we are monitoring it, and we are having conversations. We are not waiting for things to go south. I mean, and that is for our business. I mean, I don't know what would work for your business. And so the framework could be a lot, but in a nutshell, is looking out for something that works for your business, that works for your environment, especially taking into consideration the makeup of your team. So that's what I want to say.
thank you very much, Marcus. Miss, did you have any comment on it?
Yes, just to add to what Marcus has said, I want to just look at giving performance feedback, just a bit on performance feedback. The moment feedback comes into the conversation, it suggests that we are communicating and it's a two-way thing, you know. So it's beyond even looking at the generation, because let's assume you're leading a team of 10 and you have different, let's say all of them are even Gen Zs and millennials. But you'd find that within that group, there are those who want direct conversations. Tell me immediately, give it to me as it, don't sugarcoat it, right? And then you find those that the moment you say this feedback is developmental, or things haven't gone the way we planned, all the fillers are out and they get anxious. That's an individual thing. It's not a generational thing. And then there are those who enjoy the whole camaraderie of things that we did it together. Are there people like that in your team? So I think that for if a leader is looking for a framework to give feedback, give and receive feedback that is fair and motivating, I would say step off the whole Gen Z millennial conversation. Are you able to fully see the people in your team? And then if it's a simple framework that you want to remember, I would say if it is praiseworthy, give a bet. A bet stands for behavior, effect, and then you thank them. So, what behavior did they show, for instance, that led to the achievement of the results that you're seeing? What effect does it have on you and the team? And then you thank them. If it's not going well, please a bit. All right. Again, what's the behavior? Because it's not all of them that is bad. It's something. What's the behavior you want to address? What's the impact? And then you hold a discussion, because then it's a two-way affair, isn't it? So that's a very simple framework for giving praiseworthy feedback, but also giving developmental feedback to the individual, and not just a category of people. See your people is what I would want to leave this on this call. Fully see the people that you work with.
Fully see the people that you work with. Um, um, in fact, I'm waiting for more questions. Okay, so there is a question that says from Albert. It says performance. No, I think it's more of a comment. It says performance management should be a daily activity, and I think it's trying to rehash what Marcus said. It says from Salome, talking about communication and understanding. How does one manage or handle employees who get offensive when feedback is direct and factual? Um, yes. You can take it. I know you want to take the question, so you can
No,
take
I think already. I'm laughing because already can you see the diversity at play?
Yes, yes,
Already,
yeah,
you can
yeah.
tell that it's two people who see things differently,
Differently.
right? And I like to use myself as an example. Um, Context, again, I say context matters, and that's why as a leader, if there are 12 people that you lead, fully see the people, because then that influences how you communicate. I used to work in my team, was an individual who the moment I start anything developmental, I can tell that their body language changes. And I notice these things because maybe by training, that's it. But they sink into their chair, their face drops, their shoulder just slumps in. Like it just drops. I can tell that this is, and it can be very simple, but then I realized that anything developmental was a heavy toll on them. And the moment I shared that, the whole day was like that for this individual. That just meant then that there was a conversation I needed to have to fully understand this individual. So the individual and I had a conversation, and I got to understand that, like me, this individual had grown up with a fancy father and mother. When things go wrong, and my father was a headmaster, he was a fancy headmaster. When things go wrong, you got the beating. And it's not beating with small b and small e, it's capital B, capital E, capital A, capital T. And so you lived your whole life trying to do things by the books. So the moment somebody said, I don't think this work, everything inside you is up because you know what follows is scrutiny or what follows is criticism. And at this stage in your life, in your 30s or 40s or 50s, you're wondering, how am I feeling like a little girl when another adult is speaking to me? And so I don't want them to treat me like that little girl or little boy anymore. How can I make sure they don't? I get angry and put a block so that then we will not have that conversation. Because once the tensions are high, then that conversation is not happening. If I were to meet somebody like that and I'm working with a person, the moment it happens and I observe it, I want this to be a private conversation. I'll call them into a private conversation and I'll say, I have observed Marcus. that each time that I bring a conversation around developmental feedback, your body drops. I wouldn't say you get angry, or I'll describe the behavior that I'm seeing. And I want to understand what's happening. I'll hear them talk, and then I'll ask, how do you want me to give you feedback when things are not going the way um, we plan for it to go? You know, I often find that the individual knows, sometimes is very oblivious of the fact that even their body language is beginning to show, you know. And sometimes what you call offensive, like if we're having a conversation with my husband or my father, for instance, and you said to them something is not going well, how they defend it will come across to me, somebody who likes the peaceful conversations, as argumentative, because their pitch rises, their tone goes up. And so for me, then we are in an argument. But for them, they're just sharing their ideas because they want you to hear them. So that's why I said the growth is on both of us. When I said to my, if I say to my father or my husband, I think you're upset because your tone has gone up, and they say, no, I just want you to hear me. It just means how I hear people, how I pass my idea across, the fact that my voice is not high, or the fact that my pitch only goes high when I'm angry, does not mean that this person's tone going up, it means they're angry. So I'll let them know that for me, the moment you raise your voice like that, I get the notion that this is an argument and that I'm not sure how to proceed. So there's some diversity conversation that needs to happen, right?
Needs to happen.
This is what I would say.
Okay. Because of our
Okay.
time was okay. So Marcus, just give us the last part.
Okay, so just want to say that. So, for instance, taking feedback, I don't even think it's a generational issue. It's for everyone. And one of the ways of dealing with people who find it difficult to take feedback is to apply emotional intelligence. Unless the goal of giving your feedback is to let the person leave or the person quits, or you want the person to go back home sobbing and feeling very miserable, you would have to apply emotional intelligence. Um, there are some situations where you would also, as in the old system, we will call them evaluators, but in the new system, we will describe them as performance coaches. You would want to have to understand what is the objective of this feedback. Is it supposed to be is it going to cause a behavioral change, or is it a punitive measure? I mean, if it's punitive, then it's definitely not feedback in positive light. And so, just to add to what Miss D said, you would have to apply extreme emotional intelligence depending on the situations. For some people, it's straightforward. For some people, especially if you identify someone is not really in a good mood, or is not has been getting bashing right from mornings to afternoon, and you want to give feedback on a situation in the same afternoon, you are definitely not going to get someone who's going to listen. And so, applying emotional intelligence, reading the room, um, um, reinforcing the purpose or the objective of that feedback would guide you to know exactly how to deal with people in terms of giving them feedback. So, we wanted to add this to it.
Thank you very much, Marcus and Misty. For me, this has been my learnings. One, understand the people. Two, we don't need to see the multi-generational system as a problem. And we just have to just understand. And if you see it as a problem, that's where we have issues with developing a performance management system that suits them. The three is always have the performance conversation regularly, and then make sure that it is individual uh, before you have the general group conversation. Thank you very much, Marcus and Misty. I would like to take your last comment, and then we will have a conversation, another conversation.
Papa, may I take this question that says, in performance management, how do you deal with a subordinate who is always late at work? And when
Yeah,
you
that's
try
right.
to, yeah. So it's a quick one. I'm sure the organization has standards for handling things like this. Like I said earlier on in our conversation, standards remain the same, standards are consistent, the approaches should be adopted. The approach to dealing with one person to the other, as diverse as we come. But there must be standards within the organization for um, addressing late coming. If there's none, it's time for the organization to put something in place because clearly there's a broken chain or a loop and this person is taking advantage of it. But if, as leaders, I find all the time that the standards set in the organization become the first place that, or the first tool to support how we guide standards in our spaces as well. So quickly do a check on the organizational standard and what happens when somebody is behaving this way. What's the support you have as as a leader from the organization to do this, and then take it from that angle, having a conversation with the person that is the behavior that you want to address. All right. So all of the person is not bad. All of the person is not late. That behavior is what we want to talk about. All right. So that's for Albert who asked that question. And then as a way of wrapping up, right?
Yeah.
Um, I say as leaders and as individuals, I think we all have to start with a deep sense of self-awareness. Know yourself. Know how different you are from other people. Know what triggers you. Know what brings you joy. Know how you want to communicate. Because when you do that, then you can gift of yourself to the people that you lead. I also find that when you do that for yourself, it becomes easy for you to see others and give grace where grace is due. And then you can differentiate behavior, that's working from behavior that's not working and have a conversation about it. So start with self-awareness so that you can fully see yourself and see others in this whole diversity conversation. Thank you, Papa.
Thank you very much, Misty. It's been a great session. Marcus.
So I would like to encourage our fellow HR professionals that I mean we are in this together. Um, we just like we were able to ride over COVID, this would also pass, but it would the we passing over this would come up with more even scale up profits than COVID did. One of the things that we need to do as HR people is to be able to understand and know the makeup of our team. Majority of the time, we don't know how many Gen Zs are in my team, how many Generation Ys are in my team, how many Generation X are in my team. Apart from the CEO, who else is? I mean, I don't think there should be any generation baby boomer there. But if you know the makeup of your team, it helps you in your interventions. It helps you in your policy. It helps you in the way you even engage people. And so the first step to dealing with this at the organizational level is to be able to tell the makeup of your team. Once you are able to have a good picture of what your team looks like, then I mean you've taken the first step. Then you can take it off and then find off very interesting ways of dealing with some of these problems. Um, so that will be my closing remark for all HRs.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Thank you very much, Misty, for such a wonderful session. We are grateful that you were able to join us. Uh, Viewers and participants, this webinar was brought to you by the Association of Certified HR Professionals, Ghana. That is under that was established by the HR Certification Center, and its core mandate is to foster networking opportunities among practitioners, promote continuous professional development, and conduct research advocacy and with the intention of supporting the regulatory environment in Ghana. And so if you want to be a member of the association, you can contact the center, and then the center will register you make you a member, there are some few requirements you have to go through, then you become a member. So if you want to become a member, you can contact us on our numbers, on our flyers, even the flyer on the flyer that was posted for this webinar. But to those who didn't have the privilege of getting to the flyer, you can contact us on 020 800 7585. 020 800 7585. Also, from the 24th to 26th of June, we'll be having our performance management workshop, which we call the masterclass on performance management, looking at the concept of balanced scorecard. Normally, our objectives are set with looking at the financial aspect only, but there are other aspects that contributes to performance. That looks at the customer perspective. We also look at the internal process perspective and learning perspective. And so if you are interested, and I believe that everyone here is interested, you scan the QR code on your screens and register for the workshop. And the registration will pay our regular fee. The fee is 3,800. That's the regular fee. And so you do a 10%, that'll be 380 cedis off for you. So please register now, scan the QR code and register now. The ACHR is part of the HR Certification Center. And the HR Certification Center runs certifications for HR professionals. Now, these certifications helps you build your confidence in your HR practice. To those who are in other professions that want to come into HR, we have a course for you called the APHR that will help you get the basis to become a very good HR professional. We have the mid-level for basic professionals, that's the Professional Human Resource International program. And then we have the SPHR for the senior and top managers to be able to get themselves, get that credential to help them with their work. Thank you very much for being a part of this webinar. We are grateful and we don't take your participation for granted. Thank you very much and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Certification Center commits to a higher standard.
Why do 93% of the world's leading multinational companies prefer certified professionals? Because they tend to be committed to higher standards and ethics and maintain an informed intercultural competency. Whether you're seeking to build a career or to upgrade your HR professional career, you need to get trained and certified at the HR Certification Center today. Our experience in training and certifying HR professionals is unparalleled. We're trusted to offer a comprehensive portfolio of advanced professional credentials for the HR professionals worldwide, and today, more than 500,000 HR professionals worldwide in 125 plus countries proudly maintain our credentials as a mark of higher professional distinction. HR Certification Center. Call or WhatsApp today on 0244 122 855.